once they find all that bait in Bass Strait, you guys will have an awesome yellowfin fishery, an awesome bluefin fishery. You'll have awesome everything fishery going down there.
Why do you sound annoyed about that? Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Deep Drop for another episode. That sounded very serious, didn't it, Adam?
It did.
That's
bit too
not what we're about.
Bit too serious for us, I think.
Welcome, everyone. Crack a beer and whatever. No, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with it. But welcome. If you're new here, absolutely welcome. Welcome aboard the Deep Drop journey. This is a podcast that is about fishing and asking and answering all sorts of weird and wonderful questions that relate to fishing. Now, don't expect really solid answers. Ads, I think, is probably a key message for new people.
Yes, yeah. Luke, you and I sit back after every single episode that we record of the Deep Drop. You and I sit back and we try and answer one simple question. What is the Deep Drop? It's why we intro every single show with what it is, because we're still trying to figure out what it is ourselves. But I think one of the better reasons, or one of the better things about the Deep Drop that I think we've come up with, Luke, is we don't necessarily know the answers, but we're going to fire a lot of bullshit at you so that you can make your most educated form of an answer to these questions that we pose to the listeners out there. And I kind of think that sums up what we're about.
I love that. Do you know one thing we haven't done? You know, we constantly ask ourselves, what is the Deep Drop? We haven't really asked anyone else. Maybe there's people out there who could tell us what the Deep Drop is based on what you've heard. But as always, to your point, Instagram is the place where we get lots of amazing feedback on all the stuff we've spoken about, some ideas that people have thrown our way, and just general feedback and banter about some of the things that have come up on the show. Now, I've got one example here during the course of the week. One of our good friends, Caitlin, who you very well know from the VFA ads, and if people are on Instagram, they'll find Caitlin under Caitlin Fishes is the handle. Now, she said in this image of her holding up a redfin, based on some recent chats, holding this week's episode personally accountable, redfin chat plus Crater Lakes chat equals rabbit hole entered.
Yes.
So she's gone the daily double, Caitlin. I love everything about that, by the way. Nice ready, by the way. Exactly what we spoke about last week too. People holding up solid redfin because they look cool.
Yep, and there was a big call made, Luke, that redfin were more popular than cod and yellows. I saw there was a few on there that were more than willing to tell us that we were fucking idiots and full of shit. No, and that though they're accessible, they're nowhere near as popular as cod yellow.
But interestingly, there were quite a few late comers that have put some comments on, and they were interesting because a lot of it was around the fact that they could well be more popular based on the fact that they're easier to catch. They're in greater numbers, and I'm quoting Total Touring, who commented on our post on Instagram. Easier to catch, greater numbers, more accessible, and would be quite often caught as bycatch as well.
True.
Ash Cooper said, I'd say there are far more people targeting redfin day to day than cod.
I'll take that as agreeing with the point of view there.
This is all going to, exactly. Yep. This is all going to what your initial feedback was. Luke's Gone Fishing said, I would have to agree, cod are definitely the popular option for the more serious angler. However, there are so many more casual weekend warriors, and all they want to do is catch a fish, making reddies a common target.
Fair
Add to that, no size limits, and the old fellas can even slaughter them. I don't want to use the word slaughter, but I'll just reading it out. In football and cricket score numbers, and don't forget, reddies are actually tasty and, quote, are tasty as fuck.
Yeah.
So
clearly a long-term listener of the program, and I love the feedback.
Absolutely. So there you go. So, I think you're onto something there. I mean, you dropped that bombshell.
I put it out there, threw it out there just to see what sort of nibbles I'd get. I like it.
Now, Ads, we're not overly political on the show, basically because we don't know enough about it. But we had a message during the week, and I just simply said I'm happy to do a shout-out because that's what we do. This is from Max. Hey, boys, been smashing the podcast while at work for the last few weeks and slowly getting through them. loving the content. If possible, can we promote the No Netting Portland Facebook page? If possible, it's based around the drag netting and impactful effect it's having on the ever so popular kingfishery. Excuse me. So, No Netting in Portland Bay is the Facebook page or group. I think it's a group.
Yep.
Which is and I think one of the reasons I was happy to give it a shout out, ads, is probably just information based. If people want to learn more about what's happening,
jump in, have a cruise.
So, No Netting in Portland Bay is the title of the group.
Nice.
So there you go. So yeah, I mean, we don't want the kingfishery down there getting too smashed because it's pretty epic.
That's right.
So yeah, along that west coast. Anyway, so there's plenty of feedback there, and there's going to be more and more feedback that we call out for because we need help, ads.
Oh, we need. Mate, maybe the help we need's not readily available out there, Luke. But you know what? Never mind. Still get amongst it and give us a shout out. It'd be good value.
Absolutely. Now Instagram, Spotify, that's all the places you can find us. We've got a big show coming up because we've got a special guest, ads.
Yeah, we do.
And
looking forward to this.
We've spoken about having some guests over the coming weeks, and this is probably to kick things off, so to speak. Someone, it's fair to say, who has done a shitload of fishing.
Probably more than most, but taking it to a different level. Throw in photography, throw in filmmaking, throw in television presenting. This man's done it all.
Yeah. And passionate.
Yeah, very passionate.
Deeply passionate.
That got sensual.
Sensual. Glad you said sensual. Well, I don't know if I'm glad you said that, actually. All right, ads. It's fair to say that you and I, we talk a lot about fishing, but we don't often make a lot of sense. And this is exactly, Adam, why we've got this very special guest in tonight to actually make some sense of fishing. Welcome, everybody, and welcome Al McGlashan.
Wait, you said sense. Hang on. That wasn't. I thought it was the unsensible one that you guys got.
Luke and I have been making no sense for quite a few episodes, Al, so we kind of need someone to come on here and know what they're talking about.
Oh, and so you couldn't get them, so you got me.
Yeah. You were on the list. I won't say where on the list, Al, but you were on there. No,
Long
mate.
way down the list.
Absolute treat to have you on the show, mate. It's awesome being able to follow what you've been doing over the years, but more importantly, what are you doing at the moment? There seems to be a pretty hot tuna bite up the New South Wales coast.
Yeah, it's been really good. So we were fishing Sydney for a while there, and you'd catch, for the first time ever, went out one day, caught a bluefin 60 kilos. Went out the next day and caught like a 55 kilo yellowfin. So it's been a real interesting year, and you never get the two in the same water. So it's been a really strange year. There's been an awesome yellowfin bite, down at Bateman's Bay, Burmese, Sydney. There's another patch up north there at Port Stephens. So it's been probably close to a decade since we've had a half decent yellowfin bite. And bear in mind, you used to go out and catch yellowfin everywhere. They weren't hard in the old days at Burmese. You never drove far to catch yellowfin. There were lots of yellowfin, and whether we overfished them, whatever it is, I'm not sure. But now they're more of an offshore species and a bit harder to catch. But we're now, I suppose, travelling to these areas. But it's been unreal. There's been some solid fish in amongst it, and it's been a lot of fun.
This is interesting, ads, because we were talking only a few episodes ago about and Al, not to rub it in, but geez, Melbourne have got a good tuna fishery at the moment.
Yeah.
No,
hey, do you know when I left, it was no tuna, no swords, and there were definitely no marlin or kingfish. Now you've got awesome bluefin, good swordfish, a few marlin, and good kingy. He's probably got better kingy. Actually, would have better kingy fish than New South Wales has. So I don't know if it's because I left or I'm not really sure.
Yeah, you stay there, mate. You can just stay there. No, but what I was going to get to, we touched on the prospect of would there ever be, like we've been really treated with the bluefin fishery down here for sure. Like it's amazing. Is there potential in some miracle world where we might see yellowfin coming through around Bass Strait and that sort of thing? And you've just mentioned that you're more or less getting them in similar water at the moment. All of a sudden, I'm thinking it's an option.
They're definitely there. So, I mean, obviously at the moment, they prefer the more open water. So, Malakuta and, Lakes Entrance, that 100%, they're already there. The guys just don't fish for them enough. And what's really interesting is when we go to places like Kuta, we never or rarely see bluefin. And for the life of me, I cannot figure that out. Like, you catch them on the other side of the canyon there over at Lake's Entrance, and they get the odd big eye there too. But out the other side, I just, for the life of me, I don't understand why we don't catch them deep dropping or see them on the surface. They see them in close down again around Gabo, little rats and stuff, or they catch them outside Gabo out to sea. But why are they not feeding in force in that Bass Canyon has absolutely got me. But what's interesting there is they used to long line down there a lot for big eyes in the summer in that canyon. So
yeah, right.
And remember, everyone's following everyone else at the moment. There's not a lot of ingenuity in fishing these days. As soon as someone thought instead of trying new stuff, everyone goes, "Tell me how you do it so I can do it." They don't come up with and try different things. And there's a whole fishery that could be potentially fished down there that we're not touching because we're not changing. We all sit on top of each other now. They don't go out on their own and explore the way we used to. So we don't know what's actually in there. And bear in mind, it's one of the biggest submarine canyons in the world. So there's lots of potential down there.
Al, you mentioned something about us not targeting yellowfin. What's the difference between targeting yellowfin and a bluefin? I mean, apart from setting a cube trail, which you could do for a yellowfin, that doesn't seem to be done as bluefin as much. Where's that difference? If you wanted to go and, say, have a cruise around the canyons at lakes, or if you were off Malakuta and you wanted just to say, okay, today we are going to think outside the box, we are going to do something to chase yellowfin, how would you do that differently to bluefin?
So definitely it's sort of similar in some ways, but the big thing for us is your current. So wherever that current's going and the edge of it is where they'll stack up. So obviously with the East Australian current, it comes down and then it swings round into Bass Canyon. But there's a couple of things. One is the bait, and it varies every year. So earlier this year and last year, they were all in the hot water. Hot, dirty water was where all the yellowfin were. Overnight, it's literally changed, and now the yellowfin are really cold. Well, like, we're catching yellowfin the other day in 16 degrees. But there was one thing that was a key: sowies. The sowies were there, and there were gannets. So if I was out at sea, and this is where it's really interesting, because in New South Wales, if we see gannets out in 500 fathoms, I can pretty much guarantee there are yellowfin there. But for bluefin, no birds, which is obviously go down and, Western Victoria there's 3 billion gannets on every school of bluefin. So it's quite interesting that when they come up this east coast, that the bluefin are a bit like blue marlin. You just drive around and all of a sudden you're on. There's half a ton of fish under the boat. So it's really a weird one. But yellowfin, gannets. If the birds are there, they'll be there. And of course, at the moment, they're all doing top water when they're on the sowies, and it's unreal. Yet earlier on, they weren't on. There were birds and there were whales around, so it all looked good, but we didn't see any surf action at all. Troll around and get yellowfin, and they were all eating tiny little squid and crabs. So obviously something changed, and then normally it's sowies. That's the big one that they love eating. But yeah, it was completely different. But having said that, I've sat in Bass Canyon a couple of times for swords and watched sowies smash up around the boat with, striped tuna chase them. Haven't seen a yellowfin on it. So, but again, it's just, we only go to the same spot. We only sit on that, 400-500 metre line. We don't go out in the canyon. I mean, for us up in New South Wales, yellowfin is a 500 fathom thing. You'd catch more yellowfin along 500 fathoms, 500 to 800 fathoms, than just about anywhere. Like, they love that line. Bluefin, out in the yonder most of the time. They're, outside the 1,000. So little things like that. But those little intricacies change every year. And, I mean, I'm sort of lucky. I've got a couple of mates that are longliners, so you can get word as they're coming down going, oh, yeah, they're in the hot water at the moment. Oh, yeah, oh, geez, they're in the cold. It's like, yep, I'll just go and look at the cold water today,
Do you know what I love? And we speak about it a lot, is that this is why we are just a part of the best pastime, sport, hobby, whatever you want to call it, because you can't clock it. There's no mastering of it. Like someone like you, Al, who has done it for longer than and more successful than most people I know, you still sort of left guessing sometimes, like the yellowfin being in 16-degree water. It keeps you on your toes permanently. It's
never
awesome.
Stop learning. It's that simple. Just never stop learning. And every day it's very humbling because it's the only, and you hear these guys, oh, you only use this, you only use that. It's like, that doesn't work because every year it changes, and every year, like we go out some days, go, this is it, they're going to go off their tree, we've got the moon right, we've got the, the tides right, everything go out, they're going to be unreal, drive out, not a bloody fish. Like, it's very humbling that you just go, well, I'm back to the drawing board again, and do it. But there's key things that you see that keep coming up, the bait is a key thing, but what is the bait is a lot of people go, oh, I'm marking heaps of bait, and a lot of people talking on the, look at their sounders going, oh, I'm marking tuna everywhere. It's like, how do you know the tuna? Like, some units you can tell once you've used it and you go heaps and heaps, like with my Faruna, you go, they're yellowfin there, I reckon there's striped tuna there, because you're so used to it. But there's a lot of time looking at, I don't know what that is. Like, that's really weird. We had the other day, we were out doing the sat tagging for the yellowfin, and there's this streak, this red line screaming up on the from down deep, which is 99.9% of the time a blue marlin, without fail, because he's seen the lures, he's coming up at a ton of knots. Went, oh, yeah, we're about to get a bite off a blue. And we had the Sean in India, they're both looking at us going, what? I went, oh, yeah, that'll be a blue marlin, 35 kilo yellowfin. At least it was a target species. I think that was the only bit I got right. And like I was telling all my mates that, fish of the Canaries, all those, Cape Verde and all that, went, oh yeah, it just came screaming up. And it was 30, I think no, it wasn't. It must have been blue marlin next to it. I went, there was nothing else. One lure went off and it was right at the back of the boat. He came screaming up. So you just never stop learning. You see, the other day we had a big pot of sperm whales out there, and they're always a good sign for tuna. If they're around, there's going to be tuna around as well, and both bluefin and yellowfin. But the dolphins were out there swimming around with them. Like, it was bizarre. I jumped in to try and film them a couple of times, and all I got were bloody dolphins. Couldn't get up. Like, they look like they're going slow, but those things are bloody moving. And you just sit there going, I've never in my life seen dolphins and sperm whales sitting right next to each other. So obviously they're feeding on something. And there's no doubt our waters are changing at the moment. Like, everyone can go, they say global warming, these other things. At the end of the day, there's too many people using up too many of the resources. It's really simple. It's not some scientific thing. So the water is changing. Like, it's getting hotter, and fish, are moving with it, which ultimately is great for Victoria because you will get more yellowfin down there. Once they find all that bait in Bass Strait, you guys will have an awesome yellowfin fishery, an awesome bluefin fishery. You'll have awesome everything fishery going down there.
Why do you sound annoyed about that?
I moved to Sydney to catch more fish. I'm going to go, like, being totally responsible. I'm going to move north and go fishing. That's what I'm going to do.
It was a fair call, though, at the time. In fairness, there wasn't much happening down here.
Yeah, and then I turned around and went, what do you mean you got good kings? What do you mean you got swords? To be fair, they didn't have a boat ramp at Cooter in those days, and Lakes entrance was terrible. And remember, too, we were 2 straights back in those days. You wouldn't be able to fish where we are. I mean, that's a big thing that people don't realise these days. They go, oh, the fishing is still great. We never travelled that far.
Yeah.
That is a big part of it.
Yeah. As a kid, Bermagui, you didn't even go the shelf. Like, you caught yellowfin on the 4 and the 6, didn't have to go the 12, or you went to the island.
Yep.
And now we've fished them out, and now we're fishing further and further out. And are we having more impact, or have the fish changed? There's all these things. But again, same old thing that we endlessly have is just not enough research, like proper research that's about, understanding changes and going, well, hang on, what is happening to these fish? Like the other day, a young fella caught 120 kilo bluefin off Sydney, and, like all fishermen, you cut the guts open, have a look what's in there. Guess what was in there? Plastic.
Oh, that's a worry.
And so there's a couple of things. One is that it's a once-off, but what if they're now eating the plastic? We're obviously seeing it with seabirds and things, and, people go, because we're seeing a lot more rubbish in the ocean because, our populations are going up. So if it used to be 1 in 100 people didn't care and throw all their stuff down the drain, well, population's screaming up. Now that 1 in 100 might be 100, then 200, then, it's a natural thing, and it is a worry.
Have you genuinely noticed more put like rubbish offshore?
100%.
Yeah,
no question at all. It's COVID would probably where you start seeing it. During COVID, there are a few ships and stuff where it went through the roof, and then the floods obviously play a role in it. But now there's more rubbish, and if we go, and a simple thing, take the dog for a walk down the park there's rubbish everywhere. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't there before, and we've been chasing the kings in the river, and because the water temp's gone up a bit in the river in the recent years, we now get jelly prawns right up in the upper Parramatta. So these kingfish have changed the way they feed, and they now feed like threadfin salmon and barra up in the territory, smashing prawns up in the mangroves. Like it's awesome to watch. We're doing it for our new series, but what we also see is, like we spent each day on there, is a massive increase in rubbish.
Yeah.
Just steadily increasing. You go from seeing a little bit to going, God, there's a lot of rubbish around, Walk into the mangroves. And remember, Sydney Harbour's the icon for Australia. Like you got the Harbour Bridge and all that. And yet the Parramatta River is still classed as one of the most polluted rivers in the country.
Yeah, it's
Come
a
on,
shame,
guys.
mate.
But to me, and you don't want to harp on it, it's not that hard. If we can't fix the river in the middle of town, how are we going to fix everything else? And fishermen play a really important role because we complain about it and say, hey, we need to do something. And, fishermen, because they always blame fishermen because it's on the water. But the problem you get with a place like Sydney is the whole basin, everything flows into the Parramatta River. The whole everything. Parramatta and Middle Harbour and all that, because it drains in. So every drain goes in there, so all the rubbish ends up in there. So it's not, as they say, fishermen, it's someone out in Western Sydney pouring his paint down the, drain because it's getting a bit harder, or, oil leaking on the road, or all the plastic and stuff all going.
It just cops everything.
Yeah, it's the whole lot. So, and it all ends up in the water where we see it as fishermen. And like I've been fighting tooth and nail with, I've probably got a bit of a bad, government's haters because I just tell them how it is. And I've been pushing. I said, we've got bass in the Parramatta River. Let's fix the river and do it so that, wouldn't it be a great thing if Aussie bass started breeding in the river again? No, not even interested.
But that's where this is one of the most interesting and most complex issues, Al, because generally speaking, these issues get out of hand when there's a lack of education. I think we're past that point. There's so much education now on where your rubbish goes if it's not disposed of correctly. We understand the issue the world has with plastics. We have the issue on why that is and why they get eaten by sea life and all these things that lead to polluted waters. So when is the point where education is no longer an excuse? I think we're getting to a point now where I think it has to be put back on just the general population. I mean, everybody knows this stuff. The education cycle on what it does to our waterways has been and gone, in my opinion. So what's the next step to fix it? Like, how do we get to a point where, like you're saying, we could potentially see Aussie bass, natural recruitment of Aussie bass in the Parramatta River, that's a beautiful thing. It's just 99% of the public don't really give a shit.
Yeah, and that's part of it. And it's inconvenient. So conservation and looking after the environment are great until it costs you money. So a lot of people, you hear about it, and a lot of these, and it's not against the inner city hippies and all that carry on about it, that never actually go there, which is always the big issue I have with people telling me about the oceans. I go, well, I'm on the water and I can give you every day that we've been out, so I can show you anecdotal evidence that what we see is changes, and they're all happy until it costs them money. That's what we see. So I went to all the councils and said, collectively said, let's change the river. Fisheries go, oh, that's a great idea. And I said, right, you've got all this money, let's do it. And then they put it up for something else that's, politically correct or whatever.
Yeah, savvy, yeah.
So the environment always comes second off, and we've always got an attitude that anything that affects us, got to cull them. Sharks are a nuisance, got to cull them. Everything else we're getting rid of. Like, I was looking the other day at all the world records and all the massive fish that were caught. They're all 30 years old. Like 50 years old for some of them. And so the big fish aren't there anymore that we used to have. And bluefin's probably the only example where it's changed. Like yellowfin, we used to fish for, yellowfin up to 100 kilos. And we didn't have technology like we have now. We don't have the ability. My boat alone, we worked out, 15 years ago, I had $1,000 worth of electronics in it. Now I've got 75,000. I've got a radar specifically for finding birds. I'm running 4 transducers. I'm running 2 radios so you can hear. We've got an IS on there so you can see what other boats are doing. you got sea surface temperature charts, you got all these things. And one of the big things I've noticed in recent years is everything in fisheries is based on catch rates. That's all we worry about, catch rates. But what we haven't done is our technology's improved dramatically. So it used to be a 90-10 rule. It's now probably 60-40. So 40% of catching fish. So all these guys that never used to catch fish are suddenly going, oh, the fishing's pretty good. What are you talking about? Because they never caught fish, so they're catching more fish. And we fell for it up here with the kings in the early part where we used to go, where we got really good, really quickly catching big kings and went, oh, mate, the kings are awesome. And we did some early acoustic tagging of kingfish. And the girl that was doing it goes, oh, yeah, they all got recaptured. And I went, what do you mean they all got recaptured? What? Like, that can't happen. And we had a massive recapture rate of something like 25% when recapture should be about 0.1% for a fishery as an average. And I went, shit, this is not what it was. And it wasn't just us, everyone was getting better at catching kings. Now, in New South Wales, kingies are in dire straits, which will be interesting to see what happens going forward because our king fisheries, well, it's down at 20. It'll go below 20, which is unsustainable at the rate it's going. And the interesting thing is at the start when we were saying it, a lot of people are going, oh, you just, the old internet bloody warriors going, oh, you just can't catch them. I'm going, well, I used to go kingy fish off Sydney and my biggest problem was bait. Taking enough bait for a day's fishing. Now I go fishing for kings. I let the bait go at the end of the day. And what happens then is you don't fish for kings, so we naturally move to another species. So, it is a little bit of a worry. And you've got, I suppose, a hero, and you're saying before, Adam, that people know, but we want more fish, and yet when you want to do it and say, hey, we need to change this and make this work, people go, oh, we don't want that. You go, well, hang on. We might have to take a little cut to go forward. And then you got, this is where it all gets political. Then you've got green groups trying to cut fishermen out. So instead of everyone going, well, hang on, we need to find common ground and work the best for the fishery, where a lot of it's not for the fishery, it's for people for their own egos and, politicians with legacies and all these sort of things coming to it. The end result is it doesn't work for the fisheries, people fighting over it, and you sit there, even our own people. I remember years ago when we worked on that super trawler, I used to give up all my time to go to Canberra and sit down and go, hey, and you got to remember you're taking a job off these poor blokes that have put everything into it and said, right, this is what we want. We come out of it, and the federal police ring me up and go, are you aware that some of the stuff being said about you, because we're in Commonwealth at Parliament when it all went on, they go, oh, there's a bunch of cranky Tasmanians carrying on and saying some pretty dodgy things. And I'm like, what? It wasn't green groups. It was our own people. And you're sitting there and the boat turned around, came back and started fishing. So fishermen have the potential to be a massively strong element. And for us, I would get commercials in and I'd get environmentals in. And what you have to keep in mind there is some wrecks, you can't fix them. They want to kill everything. It's my right. It's my, whatever. Some commercial fishermen are complete barbarians and don't care. And some greenies are complete zealots. Yeah. But the overall, everyone wants lots of fish in a healthy environment. We don't want to see plastic. We want to catch lots of kings. And I've, started work with some of the longliners and stuff that are all exactly, we don't agree on everything. You can't have 100%. But the ultimate thing is both want to work together and they want to keep working and we want to keep catching fish. They want to keep catching fish. And green groups generally want the same thing. So the problem is that we seem to be almost going in the opposite direction where everyone's spending more time, fighting each other rather than working together. So
there's been some good case studies now too. I think we can lean on some good results. I think Victoria had some really good wins, but then on the flip side, there's been some pretty average results. And you just look at South Australian snapper, and you go, this is what could happen, guys.
It's a real worry that, you look at South Australia with the snapper, and that's put back on fisheries management pretty hard. And they knew the commercial blokes were flogging it. The wreck catch was dropping because they were trying to make an effort, and they just let the commercials continue because they looked and went, oh, we're going to get stuff, so we might as well fish the living daylights out of it. So you look at stuff like that and go, holy moly, because remember too, in 2030 we've agreed to the UN that every fishery in Australia will be in state of recovery or fully sustainable. And we're nowhere near that at the moment. Like in state fisheries in a lot of areas, we're in dire straits. So you got Western Australia, who's a really interesting scenario, who has the least number of fishermen per capita for the size of, geographically speaking, and yet somehow their fisheries management have completely stuffed their demersal fishery with less fishermen. No one's responsible except wreck fishers get blamed. And then you look at Queensland with mackerel, and you sit there going, so in New South Wales will get it soon because jewfish are almost, they're they'd be commercially extinct at the rate they're going, and recreationally, they used to be common as we used to catch them all the time, and they're gone. And the same thing, you look at if Victoria doesn't look at its snapper fishery and start going, because remember we're targeting when they're spawning. Are they not? And this is the thing: are they? If we catch and release them and work out they're surviving, all good. But are they not spawning after that? They're things that we want to look at. That we want to make sure. And people would be happy, I reckon, if we said, look, we've worked out. And the problem you get with a bit of the science is a lot of the science is not about the fishery. It's about the scientists getting their next project. So who funds it gets steered that way. Again, politics plays a massive role.
Yeah.
But it's not genuinely about going, if you or three of us go fishing tomorrow and catch 4 snapper, that the next generation go out and catch 20. That's, to me, what the whole thing's about. It's not about sustainability, which is you fish it to the absolute max without it collapsing. I want it so we enhance it. So we go and catch 10 snapper. By next season, the kids are going out going, oh, these snapper are driving me bad. I can't get away from them. That's what I want.
We posed on the show not too long ago, and we got lots of good feedback across social media and stuff on whether or not how people felt about the idea of a closed season for snapper in Port Phillip Bay, for example. Based on all that, I think what we our opinion, what we came to is we didn't necessarily think it's needed right now, but it was really interesting just hearing people's thoughts on it. And I think regardless of the overall result of what everyone thought, what was interesting was I think people were open to it if it meant making the fishery better long term, so which is really great. We've heard and seen quite a lot of that with some of the things that we raise on the show, and then get some sort of listener feedback. It's whether it's pro or con, it all revolves around the fact that a lot of people do care, but there's always rogues that you can't do much
100%.
about.
And the problem is that they've got a voice down social media. The people, and these people that carry on are the ones that used to send the letter to the editor of the paper. So when they go, that's the person you are, that they go, nah, you don't know what you're talking about. And you can read it on everyone's pages. You're just like, these people put the dumbest comment you've ever seen. I mean, a classic example was when we got that mako shark years and years ago when we were filming the marlin, the dirty big mako came and ate the marlin.
Yep.
People put comments, and this is just to show you how stupid they are, and it's not holding back. Like, people are really dumb. Why would you take that innocent marlin and drag it out of an estuary into the ocean where there are sharks?
Out of an estuary?
Like, I don't even know how to answer that. And
You don't, mate. You don't. That's the thing.
And people like the comment, and people like it and go, yeah, why would you do that? And they're going, oh, why would you hold it at the boat and feed it and drive around till the shark found it? And you're like, they've never been in the water. So
no, exactly. No. Do you know my only thought when I remember? I mean that image is just visceral. It sticks in your mind. Yeah. The only thing that I kept coming into my mind after sort of going, wow, what a shot, is get the fuck out of the water, Al. What are you doing?
Yeah, come over his back to do it. And like, he was having dinner. I didn't want to interrupt him. It's just like, I don't want to. Like, I was like, eat, but then. And it was amazing when he bitten the tail off, and because he just swims off. Then the marlin's stuffed; it's going to bleed out. And once it's dead, he can come back and eat it. And so they're just like, "Oh, now I can get out of the water." Plus, it's all this blood everywhere, and you're like, "Jesus Christ, that's not the place to be."
Yeah, well, this kind of it's probably a good segue into the next part of what I'd love to talk to you about. So, listen, Luke and I have followed you along the years, back in the original Strike Zone days, and all the way through. One thing or part of your portfolio, not just fishing, it's photography, it's media. When did you have the bright spark idea that you'd jump in the fucking water? Because it seems mad to me.
Well, because when I first did it, I always wanted to. It started with down at Birmingham, back when I lived in Melbourne, had to drive all the way to New South Wales before I moved up. And you catch these, and in those early days when there weren't a lot of marlin, we caught a couple one day and got back to the boat ramp, and these blokes like, how'd you go? And we're like, oh yeah, caught a couple of marlin. He was like, where are they? Went, we let them go. And of course, no one let fish go in those days. He goes, you can get marlin. So I started taking photos, you get them jumping, and I'm like, oh, they look good, but those striped marlin in the water are insane. I want to get that. So it sort of just evolved, and then I did it originally in the early days when it was film cameras, and it was so hard. It was just shit getting the shots. And then when digital came out, one of the guys that do Aquatech goes, oh, I want you to try out one of our housings, Al. I went, yep, cool. So I jumped in and started doing it. Of course, I could correct my photos, and I just went, oh, now I get to show everyone what that, that awesome, bait balls and, big fish cruising around, and started doing it and just went, oh my God, this is it. And it's still my greatest passion. Like, I don't wind the fish up anymore. It's too bloody hard. All I want to do is film it. And we've got in one of the upcoming shows. We can't put the bit in. We're teasing a black marlin in because I tried to film them for ages and couldn't do it. I'm like, oh, stupid fish. Anyway, let's catch one. So put a couple of baits out, and this fish has swum up the back of the boat, and I'm sitting there with a bait in my hand going, just swearing my head off at this stupid fish going, I could have had the camera. You're sitting at the back of the boat. You're a stupid bloody fish. Sadly, the editor goes, I can't cover that with enough beeps. What do you mean? She goes, all it is just like beep the whole way through. I'm like, yeah, but it's good. And she goes,
put it in.
Yeah.
Put it in. Put it in. We want to see. But it's a fascinating point because that evolution into digital must have just been an absolute game changer for someone like yourself who knew what you wanted to do, but you're carting around a fucking 20 kilos of film camera or something.
I used to hate it. So the big thing, people and the younger ones don't realise that you used to go and do a shoot and come back and you had no idea whether you got it. Until you process the film, and you might be in Africa or somewhere filming and stuff, and had no idea whether I could come back and everything stuffed, and like you come back and look at the shots going, oh yeah, I got that, oh that shit, go through it. But when it went to digital, it's just like it's so easy to take a photo now. And I suppose because you had to do it the hard way, coming back to that, it's like this is easy. When people complain, you go, you got nothing to complain about. Don't worry about that. And
having said that, I think you're probably not doing yourself enough credit saying it's that easy. But looking at some of your images, and most people that are listening will have seen plenty of yours across the journey. There is an art to it though, and don't undersell yourself. Like you must put a bit of time and effort into working out how to do, and you must have taken a billion shots that have never seen the light of day.
Oh, I just shoot shitloads till I get one right. They go, it's 1 in 1,000. I just shoot lots of thousands, So, yeah, it is, though. But it is, and it's composing. And particularly, too, with jumping in with big fish, it's reading them and understanding, and because everyone talks about it with bluefin. They go, how do you get so close to all the bluefin? You go, don't take a spear gun for starters. Just don't race out to them when you start trying to cube them up. Just stay at the boat. Don't swim out. Just
lather yourself in cubes.
Yeah, lather yourself in. But the funny thing is, they actually, within normally about half an hour, and because people are impatient now, they go, I'll try and chase them around. It's like, because if we've trolled up, they've come up, see them start cubing, and they're floating around a bit, just keep cubing and then get in the water as quick as you can, and then drift out from the boat a bit, then swim back to the boat, drift out a bit, swim back. Never chase them. If they start following you, just let them follow you back to the boat because they all end up following you around. And just be patient with it, and in the end, they'll just swim around with you, and they don't care. And literally, they just swim up to you and look at you like marlin love it, checking you out. They're like looking at you and swim up from behind. Yeah. And I think it's with anything that's like you walk down the road and there's a dog there, and you go, "Oh, that dog's not threatening. That's all right," As opposed to a dog walks down in a certain way, they'll behave. You're just like, "Oh, this could go, pear shaped pretty quickly and stuff." So with a lot of animals, it's like that. I mean, look at this hardcore dog right now. Like, look at that. Yeah, this is it in its danger zone.
Yeah. I love the way you're talking about jumping in and filming fish to Adam and I like it's advice. Al, we're not getting in the water and jump in the middle of the ocean.
Well,
one thing, you're going to be my support crew. Oh,
yeah, we'll support
in
from
the boat,
on top
mate.
of the boat, mate.
In the boat. But no worries.
Luke and I have tried to pick apart on various other episodes of the podcast about moving into the digital age and what becomes in vogue and what sort of misses. Is this extreme, or even just photography in general? And I'm talking photography, not snapping with an iPhone. Is it a dying art? I know it's a passion of yours, and someone who's seen it, you've seen it develop into the digital age, you're still using it, you're appreciating it. Is it something that you feel, and just within a fishing sense, is it something that people are kind of forgetting about, or is it just too easy to take a good photo with an iPhone or something these days?
I've got to say iPhones are awesome and that they're a convenience. That's the beauty. So if you want quality stuff, and iPhones will get there. So we're still, like, for the new series, it's all shot in 4K. It's all these fancy things. Once you start editing stuff, and the interesting thing is, in the old days when you shoot photos, when digital first came in, you weren't allowed to Photoshop a photo. It had to be off, yet we shoot TV, we shoot it flat so we can boost the colours in post. Stock standard that you're going to clean up the shots. Yet digital was never, at the start, you were never allowed to touch it. All the competitions like, oh, you Photoshopped it. Now, it's become a little bit surreal that everything's Photoshop perfect. So everything's cleaned up, immaculate, 100%. And that's a bit of the social thing that you see, not just in fishing, across the board. They've got all the filters and stuff now to correct everything. So everything's a little bit perfect. So, And people, I love the fact that everyone's got it now so they can share photos. Yeah, in the old days, you had to lump along a great big, SLR camera and stuff. And now you can shoot quality stuff with an iPhone and load it straight up to social. So some crazy shit happens, it gets recorded now. So it's changed it from what it used to be. It's interesting, but photos have now become more important. So, visually is becoming something, that visual element's becoming stronger and stronger. Yeah, I remember the early days, Facebook, you'd type a message on there and go, what does everyone think about this? Now, if you don't put a bloody photo or a video to go with it, you get nothing. You get zero, So it's becoming stronger and stronger, but for me, the big thing is that I want to show what's out there so that people want to protect and want to look after it and go, oh, yeah, we've got to do something about that, and appreciate it for what it is, that because they don't go out. Everyone's screen mad these days. Like, someone's dying. They don't go and help them. They all go and film it, there's this on my page,
And even that's a really good point. And just off air, we were talking, and I was showing a few people in the office some of the images that you sent through for a project, Al, and they're not fishers or anything like that, but they were just blown away. And there was a few underwater shots and some marlin and bait balls and whatever, and they're just sort of, oh, how beautiful is that? And we're like, yeah, it is, and it's a magical part of the world that if you're not into it, you'll never witness it, or you'll never see it unless you sort of go out and have a bit of a go. But it kind of makes them go, what you're doing isn't just a kill and grill session. I think there's a stigma of that for fishing across the board. But when you start looking at it from, that sort of art form of photography or filming or whatever it may be, it's all of a sudden, wow, it's a beautiful thing.
And it's the passion that all fishermen are passionate, and they all, as a 99%, want to make it better and make it, protect the fish. And photography's a real key for that. Like trout fishing and marlin fishing were probably the two main ones where it started with pretty shots, letting the fish go, and now it's evolved, right across to everything from snapper to, even tuna now. They're letting all the tuna go, and fishermen get a hard time because the bloke that goes and strings up a shark or something. Yep. But the majority of us try and do the right thing and want to, and it goes back to you saying before, Adam, about we've got to be educated, like simple things of how to clean a tuna. The early days, I had no idea how to clean a tuna. We caught these big tuna, and the really early days, those big sort of 70-kilo yellowfin, 80-kilo yellowfin, it sat on the deck all day. We had no idea that you meant that they're endothermic and partially warm-blooded, that you've got to gut and gill them within 5 minutes and fill them with ice, otherwise they taste like crap. Now, like, I'm struggling to get a photo because the crew are already trying to cut the tuna up. I'm like, come on, like, guys. You know,
just with that, if you brought in, not you, but say someone brought in a marlin at the end of the day on the back of their boat, I'm just curious as to the times have changed. It was kind of a common thing. If anyone caught a marlin back in the day, they would bring it in. That 100%. I don't know if from your experience, you're going offshore a lot more and you're mingling with that crowd. Are people bringing marlin home?
Yeah, they're still doing it. So there's still a mentality of I can hang it up and then dump it, which has to finish.
That shit.
For me, it's really, it is. And I get a hard time from some of the sort of some game fishing clubs because I'm dead against it. So for me, if you kill it, you eat it. It's really simple. I'm a mad keen hunter, mad keen fisherman. We kill fish and eat them like we kill a big sword. But we process
and that's the thing though. People have got they're within their rights to bring home a marlin, providing that you just like to think they're doing the right thing. And
that's the key though. I think that's a little bit that we can gather in our part of the ecosystem. That's where we can gather a bit of information and a bit of knowledge from the hunting fraternity. I think they do it a little bit better than we do, Alan. I'd love to get your thoughts on it too. I think their education across processing something that they've shot or hunted, killed, and looking after it to a point where everything's been preserved beautifully so that there's long-lasting, you can yield the results of that for quite a long time. I think we're probably a little bit behind in the fishing game with that. I don't think we have the apart from tuna, which has been great. I mean, you see what's been happening with the Tuna Champions crew and their education as far as looking after tuna, and it is common practice to core them, cool them down, get everything beautiful. But do you think that's kind of missing from everything, where we can be utilising a little bit more just the final product of it?
I think so. I think that it's an education across the board. I think tuna, we've still got a way to go with. I still see, and it's not against the charter boats down in Victoria and, South Australia there where they've got them all and they're not on ice. They're just lying out. They're all they're not gutted or anything. I'm like, for me, I remember when I was in Victoria when the snapper used to be insane before I left. And I worry about, so you go out and catch all these snapper, and snapper are a really good example because all these blokes have never caught one. So they go out and you get the day where you get a heap of snapper and they all get them in a bag. Now, cleaning a snapper is a bloody hard job, which you need decent knives. And I look at it going, all those boats should be showing those people, they should be all processing the fish for them. So, A, it's an education to teach them how to do it. Like, it's a classic example because 90% of those fish are going back home and all these guys are proud as punch, get home and go, look at this, I've got these snapper. Well, if they started scaling that in the kitchen sink, the divorce is coming, then they're going to pull out the kitchen knives, which are all too stiff and you can't fill it, and then you get spike bite. This is where it's across the board that we should be going, right, all these fish. Like, I reckon you should not be able to bring in a tuna that's whole. You should be gutted and gilled and on ice. It should be by law. Like, my mates that are longliners look at it and go, what? You can't eat that fish. Like, you can eat it, but I wouldn't eat it anymore. And I think that we, as a whole, like, we've always been really big on it since the early days that, we've killed a few marlin in the early days and eaten them. I'd never kill another one because they taste like crap. But if I get one that comes up tail wrapped and is stuffed, like we had a black marlin years ago that did it, and we couldn't get him up quick enough in time, and he died. So some guys are just, put a tag in it, let it sink to the bottom. Like, no, we'll take it home and eat it. Even that one that bloody shark tried to poach off us, we still took fillets off it. Like, we're going to, if he's taxing us, we're taxing him straight back. We've got his CSP for that, don't worry.
I reckon there's something in that there's a million, and obviously Melbourne, you've seen them, Al, too. There's a million charter boats, but there's not many guides. Now, I reckon there's a real difference between a guide and a charter.
Yeah, 100%.
If we could blend in some more guides, and when I say guide, to your point, Al, teaching, not just sort of going out there, rods in the rod. Oh, if you get a bite, just grab it and wind it. Like let's do a bit of education. Now I know this is very easy for us to sit here and say the people in those charter boats making all that cash probably don't want to hear about it, but I think there's something huge in that. And then to the end point, so that from start to finish, and that finishing point is looking after your catch.
Yeah, and it's something I've seen across a lot of boats, and it's not that I've seen it with commercial kingfish boats up here. The fish aren't on ice. Like, I don't know how you sell fish like that. Like, it's charters, and it's not, and it's sort of not attacking on charters, because you go to Northern Territory, they clean all your fish for you, on a lot of the boats. And I think that's something that we as a whole, we shouldn't be led by government because they're bloody hopeless and, only interested in lining their own pockets most of the time. But we as an industry should be going, right, well, let's do this. Let's get this up and running. And, Tuna Champ is a good example in one small area. But there's every other fishery and showing how to cook fish properly and going, rightio, why take, 5 tuna? Because everyone gets in this thing and they go mad, want to kill everything. And they go, what are you going to do with it? I remember we had a classic day. So we drove out and put the gear out and hooked up straight away, got 80 kilo bluefin, went beauty. Went to put the gear back out, only got 3 rods out and had a triple and got another 2 at 100 and another one at 135 and said to the guys, keep one each, we'll process them all because I've got all the knives and everything to cut them up. And we had enough ice for 3 fish and I'm sitting there and I went, got one of the guys goes, oh, no, I'll keep one. I said, no, let yours go. You've got one already. Let's tag this one, let him go, and then we'll do it. And then turned around and drove straight home, and it's like 8 o'clock in the morning. Other boats are still going, we're driving home. Like, we're done. Went straight in, got more ice on them, processed the fish down, gutted and gilled. Obviously, they're all gutted and gilled, but got more ice on them. And done by lunchtime, one of the guys goes, oh, to keep fishing. I went, well, why would you keep fishing? You can't fish. This is where it's got to be. It's the same thing with sorties. We caught that massive sortie, first drop, hooked up, fought it for an hour and a half, spent another hour and a half getting, 300 kilos of sword in the boat, and then just drove straight home. Oh, well, we could have kept fishing. They can't. You've got a responsibility that you've killed that fish. Now you need to utilise it because in this world, and it drives me mad, like you hear about, down in Victoria, they're off shooting deer, from choppers and leaving them all. Like, oh, but they're feral. I went, it's still a resource that we have to accept. We've changed it. We've got to utilise everything to the maximum. At least they're commercially hunting them in some areas, and rather than shooting them and rather than just wasting it. But we've got these weird scenarios that we have that you just sit there going, mate, we're using up these resources at a dramatic rate, and we have to look at what we're doing and go, right, let's look at it better. And not because we go extreme, we go, right, we've got to stop everything, that's it, finish it, go. No, let's find the balance so we can move forward and go, okay, we should, because it'll be like Western Australia where they ban everything, go, you can't go demersal fishing. We'll let the commercials do it, but you guys as recreationals aren't allowed. It's like, well, no, you should have brought in management tools years ago saying, hey, we noticed that, because a lot of these fish are old, we need to do something. I mean, that's a classic example. You look at bluefin compared to yellowfin. The yellowfin lives for around 7 to 8 years as average, reaches around 100 kilos, rarely reaches that. So normally you probably say 4 to 5 years, 60, 70 kilos. Bluefins, 10 years to spawning age, and then potentially as much as 40 years. Like, people should understand that. So if they're taking one of those big fish, that's a 15-year-old fish that's spawning. There's nothing wrong with taking it, but you need to appreciate that you're taking one of them out of the system. And they go, oh, but it's fine, there's lots. It's go, we're just getting better at catching them. So there's all these things. And it's not, being all high and mighty, because we still kill a lot of fish, but we eat fish. So we eat venison and fish all self, gather all our own meat. We've got our own cattle and stuff on the property and all that sort of thing. But it's utilised. So if we kill one, fully utilise everything. Even kept the frames off the last 2 yellowfin. They're sitting in there, never chuck them in the bin. So I'll always take them back down the ramp to feed the mud crabs. And they've got the last 2 sitting in the freezer there because we're meant to go out and do some shark filming. So we'll take it back out just to film some blue sharks and makos and stuff. So it's making effort because everyone just chucks it in the bin or doesn't worry about it. It's like, well, hang on. Landfill, let's utilise every bit of that fish we can, and and maximise. Because I'm a fan. I couldn't believe when I went out with the commercial guys in the early years and went, "Oh my God, you guys really do look after your fish." He goes, "Well, it's the money." He said, "If you don't, even if it comes back and it's dead on line, it's already worth less money." And then they did have issues with some of them cutting them off and that in the early days, which they've sorted. But like all these things, and for us, I think we should appreciate every single fish we catch because it's definitely changing out there. And, we want it. So, I mean, we've got to change the government attitude that it's got to be going forward where it's going to be better and better for the next generation as opposed to where it's like, oh, no, it's all fine. It's like, well, we could make it better. Like we can always make it better.
Yep. This might be a can of worms, but I feel like it almost needs to be some independent groups again, because I just feel like while some of the government, I suppose, organisations, speaking from a Victorian standpoint, the VFA we're really confident with. They've done some amazing things down here, whether it be some of the habitat restoration stuff, breeding and stocking programs in the freshwater and that sort of thing. But one of the things that's really unique is that every state's every man for himself type thing. And even in Victoria, there's a whole lot of smaller independent organisations as well. And I feel like, and even you mentioned before tuna champions or something like that, like you almost need something for every species, I think you said before, Al, but like I don't know where it's going to come from, because like I said, I think VFA doing a great job, but what's going to shift and what's it going to take to get some of these key messages across to really, really make a difference, as opposed to just talking about making a difference? Yeah,
and the biggest problem is that all the states don't work with each other. They all seem to hate each other, which we're one country, which I don't understand. Like I'm with you 100%. I'm going, I don't understand. Like, say, classic example, if you drive out of Eden and go across the border and fish down there, so say fish down towards Victorian waters, you need different number of flares to New South Wales.
Yeah.
How the frigging hell can that work? But no, Victoria and New South Wales hate each other, apparently, or whatever. They argue or whatever it is. And I'm sitting there going, because I remember we got pulled up once in Victoria out there fishing. He goes, "Now, have you got your fifth flare?" And I went, "Yeah, I do." And he goes, "Oh, you got your parachute flare?" He goes, "No one from New South Wales has them." I went, "Yeah, I knew, but being ex-Victorian, I knew it." He goes, "Oh, mate, they never do." I said, "I just don't understand this." Like,
yeah.
And the problem we get is that we see it every time we start. Everyone has these little ulterior motives and little groups splinter off and do their own thing. And then social media gives them all a voice and they all fire up. And we lose the sole focus of what we're trying to do. And we've had big problems with marine parks are a great idea, and then it got hijacked by greenie groups and divers to shut fishermen out. Fishermen were the key to the whole area. We're the biggest user group. If you shut out the biggest user group, it can't work. And, and then they became like, all fish spawn in all marine parks. And of course, that's all, it doesn't work. And then the scientific community will sway whoever's got money. Whoever gives them money, they will go that way. So it's not, the whole thing comes down to, it's not about the fish. It's all about everyone looking after their own group. And then, then you get all the conspiracy theories and, everyone's against everyone else. And the end result is, I don't know what the answer is, but it frustrates the hell out of me that we don't have, a fisheries looking at fisheries. So like most states don't have quotas. It's unlimited for commercial fishers. You had down Victoria, you've got in West, where is it, down in Corner Inlet, I think it's gone up to 17 or 25 bloody netters in there now, which are all the ones from Western Port and all the other areas. They just push them into other areas. It's not the way to do it. You should be looking at it going, okay, what do we need to go forward? What's the best for the fish? It has to be managed for the fish, not the fishermen.
I'm fascinated by the idea of a more united national sort of viewpoint on it. And I'm not saying in any way, shape or form that would work. I'm just fascinated at the idea of, especially the eastern seaboard. I think New South Wales, Queensland and Victoria kind of, I don't know. And I don't know if I'm completely wrong, but I just feel like there's a bit of unity there, even if it's like flares or something, Al, like you say, or just some bag
just grabbed
limits.
my charger. That's why I'm walking around the house. Here, look, there's another photo.
I thought we were getting a tour.
Yeah. There's odds.
Hello. So I don't know, and I'm certainly not qualified to make any major statement in that space, mate. But I don't know. I feel like there's got to be something there that's that could be beneficial. I mean, we've spoken about even ads. I think we've spoken on the show with slot limits and bag limits. Should they be consistent from, say, just Victoria and New South Wales, for example? But again, there's so many elements to it.
Yeah, there is, and I think, with information of how accessible it is these days, and let's just talk kingfish and snapper, for example. Why wouldn't the states be working together? If, say, Victoria and New South Wales are sharing kingfish stocks, wouldn't it make sense to have a unified,
And
you know what I mean, like some sort of unified goal in how to manage the fishery if we're both seeing part of those stocks? South Australia and Victoria with their snapper. We don't know. We just don't know. How much effect does poor fisheries management in South Australia, how much has that had an effect on what we would class as Victorian stocks of snapper? We don't know. But we know enough through tagging and sat tagging and all these little different bits and pieces. These fish, they're not just Victorian fish. They're not just fish from New South Wales. They're not just South Australian fish. It really does blow me away that in a time where information and communication is as easy as it's ever been, we still can't work out how to manage these stocks of fish that clearly do intermingle between states and their waters.
And it should be to a certain degree, I'd say, a Commonwealth thing for fisheries that move around, and you can have more, like a state could have its own, bag limit stuff, but to a certain degree. But the problem we get is that they just don't get along, and there's too many egos, whether it be, ministers to, the bureaucrats all play a terrible role as well, where they're not doing it for the fishery. I found it constantly where you're getting attacked by people that it's not for the fish. They don't seem to care. I think if anything, there's less care from politics. Has got really grubby. I think these days it's not about looking after fisheries, because for me, you go, right, kingfish, we know there's a massive lack of research. So we know little bits that kingfish from New South Wales seem to go down and go through Victoria, but seem to be in South Australia more than they spend in Victoria. So, and, South Australia's fish are really big. So they're obviously big spawners. So are they going there just to spawn? We know in New South Wales they spawn where that water's around 24 degrees because that moves up and down, so it's hard to manage. But there's the collaboratives between states is always vary a little bit. Oh no, we do it differently here. And these fisheries, if they cross borders, it should be a higher level that does it. The problem you get is who does it. And we saw this for when we had COVID, that Australia, we were a whole bunch of different states and territories. No one wanted to talk, and it really highlighted how little we work together.
Yep.
And you've got these fish that are moving around that we should be. And, so it's something that really frustrates me that should be easy.
Yeah.
But it's like it's not. And if anything, they've got worse, I reckon, because we really need to look at our fisheries and go and put more money into research. And that's what we've done with the whole new series of Fish Forever, is all about sat tagging and highlighting. And this is the interesting part. Rec anglers donate all their time and are the only ones that don't get paid. So all the scientists and everyone all gets paid, but we don't. We keep doing it for free, but we also keep getting restricted. So you start wondering about, should we be, how much do we do? And when we're trying to do the right thing, and the only times you don't, if you commercially get paid out, everyone else gets something. And they even did it in New South Wales when they brought the fishing licence in, classed it as a permit, and then became a receipt. So the old idea with having a licence up here was you're a paying stakeholder. So if something goes wrong, we get paid out as well. No, they took that out. So things like that I find really frustrating. And I think the big thing it comes down to is money. There's a real minimal of research, proper research that's about the fishery. I mean, I remember they had one in New South Wales when they did the marine parks that they somehow, and I couldn't find where the money came from. They did a big research project to prove that snapper numbers were dropping because fishermen were sneaking into sanctuary zones. Somehow someone got money through for that, which was of course completely absurd because the snapper don't actually spawn in there, as they later discovered. Things like that. You go, how's this helping helping a political agenda for a green, and that's where the problem goes back to Adam. A lot of it, the science is used not for the fish, but for purposes other than, the actual fish. And people seem to have all these little ideas, political gain or, their own little group. And like you said before, you've got groups representing fishermen, but then they all get flogged. Like the guys in South Australia get flogged all the time by some other group trying to get in there. And it's not about the fish. It's all of a sudden, I want the power, or you got the funding that I should have got, scientists fighting and stuff. And I go, mate, we're here for the fish. This is, and that's where sort of, I suppose, the ugly truth comes up with a few of them. So, which I find very frustrating because I want it so we got more fish it's really simple. We just want fish for the future.
I'm seeing a new prime minister in the in the room, ads.
Imagine that. You'd have some.
Can you imagine?
It'd be some media thing that you're meant to be at. And it's like little thing hanging on going fishing, and they'd be like, right. Oh no, I'd just last about 2 minutes because I'd tell them how it is. And,
it'd be next level though. They're trying to find the PM, and he's just climbing back into a boat because he's been swimming around with a bait ball and 3-stripe marlin hanging off it. With two magos up their ass trying to get stuck into them.
The country would turn to shit, but geez, we'd have good boat ramps.
The fish would be sensational.
The fish would be great. The commercials, the record would be loved. There'd be fish everywhere. All that imported crap would be finished.
Yeah.
We'd be at war with everyone because I'd be putting people up on the borders there to stop illegally fishing in our waters. And,
That's it. Hey, mate, we've held you long enough, and we appreciate your time. But you did mention a new series that you're in the middle of filming at the moment. Tell us a bit about that before you go.
Yeah, so what we did was we finished fishing with mates, and we wanted to do something that was off our own bat, so that wasn't.
Did you run out of mates?
Yeah, we pretty much know. I couldn't catch any anyway. Everyone else went fishing and caught them, and I was like the one standing behind, And we ended up going, and because it was a bit sort of, it's a passion that we want to do something and show what's happening out there, but also show, because I get sick of anglers getting blamed for everything when we go out of our way. We're genuinely passionate and want to do the right thing. So what we did was, Ords and I, and even Coops, just said, let's do our own thing. We're not going to have it where it's heavily influenced by brand funded because all fishing shows are brand funded, so they're not paid for, like, you don't pay to put them on, you pay to put them on, I should say. You don't get, the networks don't buy them. We wanted to change that and do something that was more science-based and more about the spectacular. It goes back to you saying before, Luke, about the whole thing of just being awesome footage rather than watching someone's back while, someone else is winding a fish in. And so the whole thing is about, we're satellite tagging swordfish, we're sat tagging yellowfin tuna, but then we're out in the Parramatta River here filming this new thing with all these amazing stuff with the kings up in the shallows with their backs out of the water. And you never do it for the financial side. We've definitely done it. It's like a passion project because, God, I ran out of money ages ago. But I wanted to do something and do one that's just, we run it completely ourselves without being dictated to, and try and show something that's genuinely about the environment and how fishermen play such an important role and can appreciate it, and the issues that we have from, rubbish to, fish, looking after fish, all these things are part of it, and not having it where it's like when we go out tuna, we go and kill a tuna, or the one where we did a sword, we took a sword. So not having it where it's extreme, we let everything go and it floats off upside down. It's like, no, this one's not going to survive. We're going to keep this one and we're going to find another one. And so I suppose very real, no BS in it. Like,
Good.
So,
good.
Which will probably, fire up some, but you've got to show what it actually is and go, this one we're eating. There's no problem with actually eating a fish.
Yeah, no, I disagree with that. I don't think you will fire up anyone because I think we're in a day and age now where real is the number one. I think that's what people want to see. It's why you see things on YouTube blowing up, and that's real stuff. So I think the more real stuff that we can see, that's genuinely, in my opinion, what majority of the people want to watch, especially in a space that we occupy as well. So, mate, tip of the cap to you and all the best. I can't wait to see it, for one. And, mate, we really look forward to it because I think it's going to be a beauty.
Bloody awesome.
Absolutely. And as Ad said earlier, from the Strike Zone DVDs, Al, I nearly wore out the the Yellowtail Kingfish Strike Zone DVD that I had. DVDs. I mean, even saying that sounds weird now, doesn't it?
How old do we feel now?
Exactly.
Is that grey hair coming through?
Oh, yeah, well and truly. Don't worry about that. And obviously, the whole journey's been awesome to watch, mate, and we're very much looking forward to this new one and checking it out. And, mate, thanks so much for coming on the Deep Drop. We really appreciate it.
Anytime.